Alright, back the next night, and come back it with fresh eyes, a little bit of green book, and I had guessed all the right procedure up until then, but the holdup was getting the output side bearing through the case, through this side of the case, to be able to remove it off the shaft. Last footage I had, main shaft was offset to the right in here towards output. Bearing was off because this first synchro was off and this first collar came off with it. So all those pawls came out and everything. And here is the rest of the main shaft, which is able to come out after you take this out. That's the next step. It's a little bit violent. More evidence of rebuild, DEF, someone wrote on there. Not sure what that indicates, maybe, but yeah, so yeah, this gear has a tendency to come off along with this washer. The bearing's gonna sit right between here and this groove. And what I did is I was using two flatheads to pry against each other to pull the bearing off the shaft. I was rotating them to open up the gap like that. And this little bigger one was helping me out. And what I did was, as I was wiggling the bearing off, so I did it inside of the case, because I was able to tap the output shaft back through the case, so that bearing was off the race inside of my case. Maybe it won't come disassemble quite as easy on everybody's, but mine popped through. So what I did is I kept wiggling the shaft over and over and moving the bearing away from where it seats. And I made this piece of plastic, which is around here somewhere. I made a little piece of plastic out of a pipe, cut this PVC up. See, that was the shape of the thing I made. And it enabled me to space out the shaft from the bearing. This is that piece. So I sat this piece right here while it was in the case, pressed this gear up against it so it wouldn't fall down. That's a little tricky. And then the bearing, after I started hammering the other way, this spaced out the bearing so that once this big gear was seated against the case, like it is when you're driving, see this, it's chewed up here because of that. So that big gear will contact the case. You don't want to hit it too hard without a spacer. And the spacer basically was the width of this bearing, so it ejected it out. And then I wiggled it the rest of the way off the shaft. So next, we're gonna pull this countershaft out. And then, now that both side bearings are out on that bottom as well, which came out naturally, after that we'll punch this out for the shift arm. Should be able to only go one way. Probably punch it out, so we'll get the punch up on the inside here. And then yeah, that drain plug has some magnetism going down there. Huh, wish I could get that off. So once this case is open, maybe I'll get that drain plug out. But countershaft should be easy. I'll do that right now. Go out that way. Up, and out. So there's a countershaft. Input side has a larger bearing on it. And these are those gears for reverse, maybe. Okay. output side. There's all that maggot shit on the drain plug. A bit of oil down in there. Give this case a good cleaning later. Okay. Next we'll drive this shaft out. Looks like it was driven in crooked before. How do we get that out? Seems like it needs to go that way. Get a punch on there somehow through the bottom maybe. And then I mean, this logically would just go out that way. Alright. Pin that way and pin that way. There's what the empty case looks like. Not too much going on in there now that everything's out. Looking pretty good. Got some cleaning to do on the case for the gaskets. So no more snap rings yet. At this point, decide if you want to continue on and measure your spacers and maybe get new synchros and do all that, but I think it might take some presses and some special kind of jigs to get these separated from each other. The countershaft is just a single unit with needle bearings, and then the main shaft is all kind of pressed together. So I don't have a press or any of the special tools that Volvo calls for in the green books, as well as any other Haynes or Chilton you'll find on the 240, 140. They call for a ton of special sockets and tools to be able to pull this output side bearing. Tools that use the groove on the bearing to hold it once it's protruded, because the letters will go out so you can grab onto the ring with kind of like a sleeve puller. That's what they give you from Specialty Tools. And then there's a shim bracket that holds on the inside to keep the gear, the countershaft big ass gear, from contacting the case, and allows you to push the shaft through, push the bearing through the case without doing any damage there. It kind of spaces it out and pulls it for you. Same with this side, there's a specialty system for that, but you don't really need it. If you're clever enough with the flatheads and a little bit of PB blaster maybe and some spacers, you can get it done. I think this may be as far as I go into the tranny. Besides doing some cleaning and replacing all the gaskets, I don't think I need to. These gears look real good, so I'll clean them up and we'll get an eye on them.